Hmm. Okay. Okay. Looks like we are live on Facebook. Looks like we are live on Facebook. Okay. Okay. It wants me to change the frame. Bum, ba, bum. Please bear with me. Well, it wants me to change the frame speed, and I don't see how to do that. Okay, so we're live on Zoom, live on Facebook. Oops. Okay, so we are live on Zoom, live on Facebook. Welcome everyone, Wednesday Reflections. Okay. All right. So I was, I don't know if everyone is like me. When I think of Kansas, I think of wheat. And probably I learned that in school, maybe read it in some article somewhere. I mean, I know that the United States is one of the world's leading producers of wheat. I think we used to be one of the top producer, but maybe Ukraine passed us lately. Maybe China has a lot of wheat too. But we're like in the top 3 or top 5 of countries that supply wheat to the world. And the main place that wheat comes from is Kansas. I think I learned that in school. Probably, I'm just wondering if I'm the only person that when you think of Kansas, you think of wheat. Not only did I learn that in school, but I had a horrific experience with the Kansas wheat fields once. My wife and I were driving from New York, where we were running the Leonard Orr's Rebirthing International Training Center, to Mount Shasta for a WESAC festival, which is in California, Mount Shasta in California. And so we drove it, wanted to see the sights of America along the way. And one stretch of this was Interstate 80, I think it is. Might be 84, 86, I think it was 80, something like that. Which is just hundreds of miles long, mile after mile after mile of just straight road. No hills, no valleys, no curves, just straight. And on both sides of us in Kansas were wheat fields. Mile after mile of identical wheat fields. Every mile looking exactly the same as the mile before and the mile after. And we were on this for like 2 or 3 days. And the rest stops were few and far between. And the monotony of it was just really starting to get to me. And we're approaching the end of it, and where we're going to finally get off of this interstate and get to the next portion of the journey. And there's a sign that says, interstate ends in 50 miles, next rest stop 10 miles. And I told my wife, we're not stopping at the rest stop. We're not stopping until we get off this highway from hell, because otherwise I'm going to lose my mind. And that 50 miles was the longest 50 miles in my life. I was checking the speedometer to make sure I hadn't accidentally slowed down, because it seemed like it was taking a lot longer than it should have to get to traverse that 50 miles. And I was beginning to wonder, I was like looking around for Rod Serling, thinking I'm in the Twilight Zone, and we got killed in a car crash, and now we're in hell, condemned to drive on this never-ending straight line with nothing but just straight flat road, no turns, no curves, no break in the scenery, just wheat field, wheat field, wheat field. And you know, so I was like, you know, why can't I get off this highway? Finally, we got off the highway, but I certainly took away from that the idea that Kansas has a lot of wheat. So I was really surprised this morning to read that Kansas is importing wheat from Eastern Europe. all of the granaries and the refiners, the wheat mills. You know, if you're if you're going to be, if you own a granary or you refine wheat to make bread or to make flour to make bread, you know, you set up shop in Kansas because no logistics problems. All your wheat's just down the road. So they all set up shop in Kansas. They've been there for decades, if not centuries. And they just, the farmers bring their wheat and they buy the wheat, put it in the granary, refine it, sell the flour. Well, there's no wheat in Kansas. The farmers in Kansas don't have any wheat to sell, so the granaries and the refiners and the mills, they're all going to Eastern Europe to see if they can get some wheat. You know, and it's probably not a lot. They're probably getting what they can. And the local Kansas television news is showing, taking the news cameras out and showing what's going on. And the wheat in Kansas, it looks like a war zone. Most of it didn't grow, and what did grow is like stunted, only less than half grown. They can't use it, and it's because of the drought. And even in the Dust Bowl, that Kansas never had to import wheat. And you know how bad, if you probably, the Dust Bowl was back in the 30s when the huge drought hit that area, and the wind would just blow dust everywhere. If you've ever seen like newsreels or documentaries or even the movies, from the time like of Mice and Men, for example, you know how bad it was. But even then, it was not so bad that they imported wheat. Now they're importing wheat. So it's worse than the Dust Bowl. The drought is worse. It's the worst one they've ever had, and it's because of climate change. And in spite of these obvious signs all over the world, not just in Kansas, we are actually ramping up the amount of CO2 that we're putting into the atmosphere. And this is because the world is run by people who are run by the ego, which most people are. It's not just unique to the people running the world. The vast majority of human beings are run by their ego, the egoic mind, the storyteller in the head that keeps you in fear and separation. And the ego is destructive, self-sabotaging. It has a death urge. In fact, it is the death urge. Leonard Orr, I call it the death urge. Sigmund Freud called it the death urge. He actually used the word Thanatos, the Greek god of death, because he was a highfalutin Viennese psychotherapist, so he had to use Greek mythology, but it's usually translated as death urge. And Leonard Orr called it the death urge. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. And Eckhart Tolle connects the ego and the pain body. He calls the pain body the dark shadow of the ego. Leonard Orr, he would talk about the ego, and he would talk about the conditioned mind and birth trauma, and he would talk about death urge, but he always seemed reluctant to bring out the connection between the ego and the death urge. I call the death urge the ego when it doesn't care anymore about trying to look like it is your friend. And the reason that I say that is because of my experience with the death urge. I was in Babaji ashram, and I was doing a Sanskrit, a Vedic practice using Sanskrit mantras. And also combining with that spiritual purification practices, which I learned from Leonard Orr, although he says he learned it from he learned it in India. Sitting with the fire. So sitting with the fire is a form of spiritual purification. Earth, air, water, and fire. So like, for example, sitting in water purification, your chakras, your aura, your energy body, and I hope we don't have to like discuss whether or not it exists. The aura, your electromagnetic field, your body has now, with the latest scientific tools, measurable, scientifically discernible and measurable electromagnetic field that rotates around your body. And if you get in water, as it rotates through the water will clean it. If you sit close enough to a nice-sized fire, as it rotates through the fire will clean it. And water seems to be particularly good for cleaning out birth trauma. Your electromagnetic field collects thoughts that you have, and they can condense into constellations of negative energy. So if you have thoughts around the negative experiences or negative judgments that you made about coming into the world, that's birth trauma. That's what we collectively call birth trauma. And that water seems to be really good for cleaning that out. Thoughts that are anti-life, like I don't really want to be here, the world sucks, I want to get out, those kinds of thoughts become negative constellations that we collectively call death urge. And fire is really good for cleaning that out. And so this practice is 2 nights and 3 days, no food, sitting in front of the fire, staying awake the whole time, and constantly repeating a Sanskrit mantra, which is called the Maha Mantra for Supreme Victory over Death. So it's supposed to overcome the death urge. And plus you're sitting with the fire, so your energy body is rotating through the fire, which is really good for cleaning out the death urge from your electromagnetic field. So you're doing this for 2 nights and 3 days. Actually, however long you want. I kind of overdid it. I did it a lot longer than well, most of the people at the ashram in the U.S. is probably nothing compared to people in caves in the Himalayas. But anyway, 2 nights, 3 days. So, of course, by the end of it, I'm pretty tired. So I went to my cabin and laid down to go to sleep. Next thing I know, I'm being hurled out of my bed and thrown into a table, which is overturned and all the papers go flying everywhere. And there is this creature trying to kill me, basically. And it was horrific looking. It was made of rotting flesh. All of its flesh was sort of like falling off of it. And when I looked into its eyes, I saw nothing but absolute hatred. Just total, absolute hatred. And so I'm like trying to defend myself. And then the cabin I lived in had like an upstairs loft that you got to with a ladder, just like a wooden ladder. And it threw me into the wooden ladder and broke one of the rungs. So we're having a fight, and I am not winning. And I'm like praying, trying to think of what to do. And then I remembered a passage from a book I had read by Annalise Scarron. And Annalise Scarron is a woman who supposedly transfigured, became a light body. And there were several witnesses to the event. And after she transfigured, she wrote a number of books. And the books were published by the DeVos Publishing Company that kind of specialize in out there spiritual and New Age metaphysical books. And the publisher said that he never met her, that he would just come into his office and there would be a manuscript on his desk ready for publication. He would read through it and it would be fantastic, so he'd publish it. There was never any request for payment. He never had any address to send a check to if there had been. He said that he always locked up his office. The floor was locked up where all the other publishing, it was like, he was like the editor, publisher, owner-in-chief on the floor, so everything was locked up when everybody went to home for the day, and he always personally locked his own personal office up as well, and the building was locked. And they had a security guard, and no one ever saw anybody coming or going. No, there was never any evidence of any locks being tampered with. Everything was locked up, tight as it was supposed to be when they would go in the morning. And yet, there in the middle of his desk would be the manuscript of whatever book she had written. And so one of these books, so I read a number of her books, and one of them had a prayer of forgiveness. And somehow I knew to do this prayer of forgiveness for the death urge that was attacking me, my death urge. And I started reciting this prayer, and the death urge, this horrible, hate-filled creature, became a beautiful being of light and smiled and kind of like slowly faded away. And, Theosophy talks about this. They talk about you have to face the dweller on the threshold. That's what they call it. Dweller on the threshold, which is described as a horrible being. And when you vanquish the dweller on the threshold, it becomes the angel of light. And that is kind of the model, that is the model for how we are to deal with what appear to be difficulties and obstructions and confrontations in our life. When I was trying to, because of that experience, that's why I realized that the death urge is the ego when it no longer cares about appearing to be your friend. Your ego, which is based in fear and separation, and can only continue to exist so long as you believe that it has your best interest at heart, always tries to look like it's your best friend giving you good advice, reasonable advice, sound advice, logical advice. But because of this Sanskrit mantra and the 3 days with the fire that I was doing, it was very threatened. It was facing extinction. So it didn't care anymore about pretending to be my friend. So it was basically just trying to kill me, to defend itself. But of course, it's sort of, like any parasite, if you kill the host, the parasite dies too. But the ego is quite literally insane. So it doesn't realize or perhaps it hopes that if it can kill you while it still has a toehold, then since really all it's doing is eliminating your current physical form, I guess if you come back in another physical form, it gets to come along too for the ride. I'm not sure about that, but at any rate, it certainly would no longer get to exist here and now if it were to kill you. And so, yeah, it felt threatened, so it didn't care anymore about trying to make me think it was my friend. It just wanted me just to stop. Now, it could have all been a dream, because at the end of it, I was laying in my bed, and I opened up my eyes. And so I was like, wow, was all that a dream? It really felt real. But when I looked around the room, the table was in fact turned over with all of the papers that were on it scattered all over the place. And the ladder going up to the loft did in fact have a broken rung. So, you could explain it away by saying that I was sleepwalking in my dream and I did all that without realizing it. But I know that it actually really happened. It might have happened in some sense on some kind of astral plane. But there was definitely a psychological lifting where I just felt much lighter and higher frequency after the dweller on the threshold had become the angel of light. So that's how I concluded that the death urge is actually your ego. And most of the time your ego wants to look like it's your best friend giving you good advice. In fact, the ego wants you to think that you are it, or that it is you. And most people are so tightly identified with the voice in the head, thinking that those thoughts are theirs, and they're not your thoughts. They are not your real thoughts. They don't even come from you. But the ego gives the appearance, or lets you think, lets you identify, gets you to identify with it, with those thoughts in the head. And but since it's based in fear and separation, its modus operandi is sabotage, self-sabotage, self-destructive behavior, and eventually death, pain, sickness, disease, old age, and death. And most people in the world are run by that. So of course we have climate change induced historic droughts in Kansas wiping out all of the wheat because of all the CO2 we're putting into the atmosphere, and our response is to put in more CO2 into the atmosphere. Of course, that's what a self-destructive, self-sabotaging person would do. And the ego, which runs most persons, is self-sabotaging and self-destructive. So we are doing this to ourselves because we listen to the ego. And so the only hope that we have as a species for surviving is to overcome the ego. And that's why we see so many people more and more every day beginning to see through the illusion, to see through the non-existent ego, and to realize that it is not you, and that you don't have to think based in fear and separation. And this whole business of blessing the death urge, the dweller on the threshold, and then watching it become the angel of light, is a model for how we deal with evil in the world, with the egoic model of fear and separation and competition and dog eat dog, kill or be killed. You know, it seemed to me at the time, there I am being attacked by this horrific creature. Of course I'm supposed to fight back. But that is just more ego. That is just more fear, separation, judgment, blame, attack, counterattack, defense. Defense. When I defend myself, I am attacked. Defense creates its own attack. It seems logical and reasonable to defend yourself, but only because you don't know who you are. You don't know that you are an unlimited being of light, incapable of being attacked, invulnerable to attack. When you believe that you need to defend yourself, you're believing that you're weak and pathetic and capable of being attacked. And when you attack back, you just extend the perception down the timeline. You get more of the same, and it just keeps going into the future. You take the present moment of being attacked and having to defend yourself and being in fear and separation and hatred and judgment and anger and envy and resentment, and you just guarantee that that's going to be tomorrow. That will be your tomorrow as well as your today and your next week and your next month and 50 years down the road. If you bless it, if you love it, if you accept it, then it becomes the angel of the light. It transforms into a vehicle for you to use to transform yourself. Instead of staying locked in the thoughts in the head, which is now your ego is having a conversation with your death urge, or your ego is talking to itself. You're locked in the story in the head, and they will never get you anywhere, because it's completely hallucinatory, based on an illusionary world and an illusionary psyche, a structure of psyche. Thoughts, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem using the same mindset that created the problem in the first place. Right? So the egoic structure creates the problem of the death urge, the negative thoughts and feelings about life and other people, the judgments that you're then trying to use the ego to figure out a way out, and you just stay locked in that box. So any kind of confrontation that you have, any kind of apparent obstacle, seeming stressor that comes up and arises in your life, instead of focusing on the thoughts that arise because of that and continuing the perception for the next 50 years, focus on the energy. Go into your body. Feel the energy in your body. It could be in your toes, your heart, might be tension around your solar plexus. Wherever it is, you feel, by going into your body, you disidentify from the thoughts in the head. And when you feel the energy in your body, that arises. In fact, so when I'm doing this prayer, trying to, at first it was simply like self-preservation. Physically fighting is not working. I was really afraid that I was going to die. I remembered this passage from this book. It just seemed really relevant. And so I'm doing this prayer, but my motivation was egoic. It was survival. It was trying to find a way to stay alive. And so there's a selfish, egoic energy in that, and I knew it as I'm doing it. I know it. So I know this whole exercise, from the book. It's supposed to generate expansive love, and I'm not feeling any expansive love. I'm feeling contracted fear. But I'm like, I'm trying to as I'm saying the words, I'm trying to energetically go into the loving space. And I'm trying to let go of the selfish motive. And I'm trying to genuinely forgive this creature, genuinely have compassion for it, genuinely understand what is its motivation. Why does it hate me so much? And at some point, I got that I created, just as we all do, we created our egos, we created our death urges, and we gave it the rather unenviable job of keeping us trapped in the myth of not knowing, in the illusory world of not knowing who we are. It's like a projection. It's like a mental projection. It's like within our psyche, we projected this entity that helps us believe that we are a limited form and experience existence as that limited form. And in separation from all that is, which means we suffer, we cause other people to suffer, we experience lack, we experience pain, we create pain, suffering, and lack for others. And it's a toss-up which hurts the most, that which we do to ourselves or that which we do to others, pretending, using the ego to help us get away with this, that we don't know what we're doing, but on the deepest level we do know, so we feel incredibly guilty about that. And that guilt is another source of pain, which we then don't want to feel, so we project that out onto everyone else and make them guilty. But then that is an act of attack, and so we feel guilty for that. If you could feel all of the pain and suffering that is deep within you, you wouldn't like it very much. Let's just put it like that. And the ego is a false entity, a false psychic projection that we created in order to be able to get away with all of this. And that is why the ego hates us so much. And when I saw that, my heart melted. I was responsible for this. This horrible monster filled with hatred was a victim of my own pain projected, which was my choice. I did it, and I didn't have to. I did it to see, to find out. And at that point, there was total forgiveness. And that is when it became the angel of the presence, dweller on the threshold to angel of the presence, which is an angel of light is the angel of the presence. That's the way they put it. So, same thing, when you are dealing with an issue that seems to be like something you don't like, something that seems to be making a problem for you, a person, a situation, an obstruction, fear, judgment, resentment, jealousy, whatever it is, hatred, anger, whatever. If you get out of the perpetuating thoughts in the head and get down into the energy in the body, this find this place where you can have expansive love. So find the energy, and then the energetic reaction, which starts off as fear or contraction or some kind of version of I don't like this, this is not acceptable, this is not good. And realize that it is an opportunity. It is showing you something within yourself that put that there. And if you can love yourself enough to love that within you which put that there, and then when you do that, then you will understand why you put it there. And then expansive love, forgiveness will arise. It will look like you're forgiving the thing out there, but really you're forgiving yourself. And you'll realize that eventually. You forgive yourself for having put that out there, and the energy transmutes from fear into love, and the thing that is out there, the situation, will miraculously transmute. On the level of form, out there will match what's going on the level of consciousness in here. So it will transmute to match the love. But you can't, that's not going to happen until you learn to transmute the energies inside of yourself. So every apparent oppositional situation that arises, you can think of it as your death urge attacking you, filled with hatred. It wants you dead. It's not going to be so extreme. Like that is like the most extreme version of what happens to everybody on a daily basis. The virus wants you to get sick. Your competitor wants you to fail. Right? It doesn't appear that like anybody's trying to kill you today, usually. But it's always some sort of negative ill will. But in truth, in reality, you put it there, the energy began within your own consciousness, and it can be transmuted by you. By forgiving yourself, blessing, loving, accepting, and releasing it. And like one really good way for going into the body on an energetic level is with 20 connected breaths. So just to give people an experience or a taste of that, let's do a round of 20 connected breaths. Hopefully most of the people watching know how to do 20 connected. But if you don't, you breathe in and out through the nose. Your breathing is connected. There's no pausing between the inhale and the exhale. And it's 20 connected. Really, it's 4 sets of 5. It's 5 breaths, and then you repeat them 4 times for a total of 20. And the 5 breaths are 4 fast breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4, in and out through the nose as fast as you can. And then the 5th breath is as deep as you can. And you repeat that 4 times for a total of 20. And there's no pausing between inhale and exhale. Now, in and out is 1 breath. In and out is 2. In and out is 3. And there's no pausing between sets. People sometimes, they do 5 and they pause, like they pause between sets of 5. You don't do that. It's straight through. The first breath is connected all the way to the 20th breath. The 5th breath is the deep one, so every 5th breath, 5, 10, 15, 20. Every multiple of 5, that's the deep one. So that'll help you keep count, keep track of your count. And if if you're off by 1 or 2, or even if you do an extra 5, it's not going to kill you. You should be, don't be on a stool. You might get dizzy and you could fall off a stool. Be like in a chair with a back, some arms. You want to be sitting up. If you do this laying down, if you haven't done it before, you'll probably fall asleep, which is nothing wrong with falling asleep. This class is about helping us to let go of our stress, helping us to overcome our ego, hopefully in the kind of 100th monkey effect, lessening the amount of ego out there in the world so that we do not self-sabotage and destroy our planet. We begin to pay attention to what's going on around us in a loving, non-fear-based, separating way. So that, we should at least have as much intelligence as a child. If a child touches a hot stove and burns its hand, it's probably never going to do that again. We seem to keep touching the hot stove over and over and over and over and over again. You would think there would never have had to have been a World War II. It's almost like an oxymoron. World War II? You mean you didn't learn enough from World War I to realize you never wanted to do that again? You had to... So, I digress. So, 4 fast, 1 deep, in and out through the nose, total of 20. And I guess I'll demonstrate. I don't know if you'll really even be able to hear anything, but you can kind of maybe get an idea, and then we'll do it together. Let's see. I will raise a finger every time I do a deep breath. When I have 4 fingers up, I know I've done 20. So like I say, not on a stool. Oh, yeah, so if you do it laying down, you'll probably fall asleep, but this is supposed to be about overcoming stress, this Wednesday Reflections class, so it's probably not bad if you fall asleep, but that's not 20 connected breaths. That's not getting all the benefits. That's getting the benefits of sleep. So if you want to get the benefits of the breath, then I recommend you sit up. Generally it's not a good idea when doing any kind of energy work to have your legs crossed. Although, if you have a feeling like crossing your ankles, that's probably okay. Crossing at the knees cuts off the flow of energy. Crossing at the ankles actually makes like a loop, which can intensify the flow of energy. And so if you feel guided to do that, that's you should probably go with it. Eyes closed. If you need to have your eyes open, then you can look down. That will kind of cut down on the amount of visual stimuli coming in. And so, okay, I'm going to demonstrate now. 4 fast, 1 deep. Repeated 4 times for a total of 20. And notice at the end, I don't pop open my eyes right away and jump up and go running down the hall or whatever. In other words, I stay with it. I stay with the energy. Usually longer than I just did, but I've got to get on to with the class. So that was the demonstration. Now we'll do it all together. Don't worry about matching me, or if you're in a room with more than one person, matching them. Everybody breathes differently. Do what's fast and deep for you. And if it takes you 10 seconds longer to do the 20 than everybody else, that's fine. If you get done 10 seconds faster, that's fine, right? Your 20 connected breaths. This is very unique and individualized. So let us begin. And now just feel your body. Feel the energy in your body. Shift your awareness to what's going on in your body. What do you feel in your body? Where do you feel it? What's arising to your awareness, to your perception going on within your body? You know, is there any part of your body that's particularly active? Do you feel, or are you noticing anything in your body that you weren't noticing before? And now shift your awareness, and if your eyes are closed or if you're looking down, keep them that way, but shift your awareness to your outside world. What's going on around you that's particularly noticeable right now? What do you feel or hear? And if you want to open your eyes and look around, you can do that and just see, what do you see? Or you're seeing different than how it normally is? And then close your eyes again and bring your awareness into your head. And what do you notice about what's going on there? Do you notice any thoughts arising? What is the general tenor or voice or intention of those thoughts? And are they arising from within your head, or are they arising from somewhere else? And now move your awareness back into your body. Put it at whatever place in your body seems to be the most active energetically, wherever you feel the most energy in your body right now. And now we're going to do 20 connected breaths again, and this time through the mouth instead of the nose. And when we breathe in through the mouth, we're going to have like an O, like we're sucking on a straw. And when we exhale, we're going to have like a ah, like a sigh of relief, like a yawn. And so your exhale is going to be shorter than your inhale, because the exhale, you're just kind of dumping it all at once. It's a very quick, just dumping everything. You're dumping all of your stress, all of your tension, all of your fear-based separative thoughts. When you're breathing in with the O-shaped lips like you're sucking through a straw, you're breathing in energy. You're breathing in life energy. And then you exhale like a sigh of relief, like a yawn, just letting everything go, just dumping it out. So, and again, no pausing, and again, 4 fast, 1 deep. And so we'll begin. And notice how your body feels now. Notice the feelings that are arising inside your body. Scan your body. Maybe start with the feet. Just notice how your feet are feeling. What's going on in your feet. And just slowly scan with your attention, with your awareness, with your consciousness. Scan your body slowly. Feet, ankles, calves, shins. Take your time. You might find something interesting that you want to linger on a little bit. You're going to scan your whole body, eventually stomach, chest, head, shoulders, hands, but just go at your own pace. Notice the peace, the calm abiding. This is the peace and calm abiding of who you really are, not the fear-based creature subject to attack at any moment, that's always on guard, alert, looking to defend itself. But the invulnerable being of light. And as you rest in this place more and more, your outer reality will begin to transmute, to match the consciousness within. And as you rest in this place more and more, you'll find yourself making better decisions, having intuitive guidance as to what to do, not touching the hot stove again, not pumping more CO2 to wipe out even more wheat fields. I'm speaking now to the collective. So I'll be here next Wednesday. This video will be posted on the Wednesday Reflections public group on Facebook. I love you all. Thank you. Blessings. Namaste.